How can a man simply cease to exist? No name, no wallet, no past? How can a body found resting peacefully on a quiet Australian beach become one of the most profound and baffling mysteries of the 20th century? The only clue left behind? A scrap of paper hidden in a secret pocket, bearing a two-word phrase from a centuries-old poem, a phrase that translates to, "It is finished." For more than 70 years, this man has been known only as the Somerton Man. His story is a labyrinth of dead ends, whispered theories of Cold War spies, jilted lovers, and a secret code that remains unbroken to this day. But what if the truth is finally within reach? What if modern science could give a name to a ghost, and in doing so, unlock a story more tragic and human than any spy novel could imagine? December 1st, 1948. The world is still breathing a collective sigh of relief after the Second World War. But the air is thick with a new kind of fear, the creeping chill of the Cold War. In Adelaide, South Australia, the summer is just beginning. Somerton Park is a peaceful stretch of coast, a place for families and evening strolls. But on this morning, at 6:30 a.m., that peace was shattered. A local couple discovered the body of a man. He was dressed impeccably in a suit and tie, with polished shoes, strange attire for the beach. He was propped against the seawall, his head resting back as if he had simply fallen asleep while watching the waves. A half-smoked cigarette lay untouched on his coat's collar. Witnesses later came forward, saying they'd seen him the night before, motionless. They assumed he was drunk or asleep, immune to the swarming mosquitoes. But the police noted something odd. His shoes were remarkably clean, free of sand, as if he hadn't walked there at all. The mystery deepened almost immediately. Inside his pockets, police found an unused train ticket, chewing gum, combs, and cigarettes. But no wallet, no money, and not a single piece of identification. Stranger still, all the labels on his clothing had been meticulously cut away. Whoever this man was, someone had gone to great lengths to ensure he remained anonymous. He was a man in top physical condition, estimated to be in his mid-40s. But with no clues to his identity and no obvious cause of death, investigators were faced with a perfect enigma, a ghost on the sand. At the Royal Adelaide Hospital, the mystery only intensified. Pathologists conducted a thorough autopsy, searching for any clue that could explain the man's death. There were no signs of violence, no marks or bruises, but internally, there were troubling signs. His spleen was enlarged to 3 times its normal size, and his liver was engorged with blood. The pathologist was convinced the death was not natural. He suspected poison, something so potent and fast-acting that it left no trace. Despite extensive toxicological tests, no foreign substance could be found. The official cause of death remains, to this day, a matter of speculation. The coroner could not rule out murder. Fingerprints were taken and sent across Australia and even internationally to Scotland, London, and the FBI. Dental records were charted, but every lead came back empty. No matches. It was as if the Somerton Man had never existed. Then a breakthrough, or so it seemed. A brown suitcase, checked into the Adelaide railway station the day before the body was found, was believed to be his. Inside, they found clothing and other personal items, but the same strange pattern emerged. Almost all of the labels had been removed. However, 3 items bore a name: T. Keane. The police launched a frantic search for anyone named T. Keane, but no missing person with that name could be found. They came to believe it was a deliberate red herring, another layer of deception.
With no identity and a suspected cause of death by an untraceable poison, a chilling new theory began to take hold. This was 1948. The Cold War was escalating. Australia was a key strategic location. Could the Somerton Man have been a spy, an agent involved in espionage, silenced by his enemies or even his own side? The removed clothing tags, the untraceable poison, it all fit the profile of covert operations. The man on the beach was no longer just an unidentified body. He was a potential casualty of a silent global war. The case was growing darker and more complex, and the most baffling clue was yet to be discovered. Months into the investigation, during a re-examination of the man's clothing, a pathologist made a startling discovery. Sewn into the waistband was a small, hidden fob pocket. And inside, he found something that would change the course of the case forever. A small piece of paper, torn from a book, printed with 2 words in an elegant script, Tamám Shud. A library expert quickly identified the phrase. It was Persian, meaning "it is ended" or "it is finished." It was the final phrase from the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, a famous collection of 12th century poems.
Police launched a public appeal, hoping to find the exact copy of the book from which the scrap had been torn. The theme of the poems, to live life to the fullest with no regrets, led some to believe this was a poetic suicide note. Then, a local man came forward with a story. Around the time the body was found, he had discovered a rare edition of the Rubaiyat tossed into the back of his unlocked car, parked near Somerton Beach. He hadn't thought much of it at the time, but after seeing the police appeal, he turned it in. Forensic analysis confirmed it. The scrap of paper found on the dead man was a perfect match to the tear on the book's final page. Investigators finally had a direct link. But what they found inside the book would plunge them even deeper into the mystery. On the inside back cover, written faintly in pencil, were several lines of text. First, a phone number, and below it, 5 lines of capital letters that looked like some kind of cryptic message. The second line was crossed out. It appeared to be a code. Naval intelligence and the world's best codebreakers were consulted, but none could decipher it. Was it a complex cipher used by spies, or simply meaningless scribbles? To this day, the Somerton man's code remains unsolved. But there was one lead that wasn't a dead end: the phone number. Police traced it to a young woman, a nurse, who lived just a 5-minute walk from where the body was found. Her name was Jessica Thompson, and her connection to the case would become the most tantalizing and suspicious part of the entire investigation. Jessica Thompson, known to her friends as Jo, lived a quiet life in the Adelaide suburb of Glenelg. When police arrived at her door and showed her a plaster cast that had been made of the dead man's face, her reaction was, by all accounts, bizarre. She said that upon seeing the cast, she was completely taken aback, to the point of seeming as if she was about to faint. She appeared horrified and distressed, yet she denied knowing the man. She told police that she had once owned a copy of the Rubaiyat and had given it to a man named Alfred Boxall while working as a nurse in Sydney during the war. Could the Somerton man be Alfred Boxall? It was a promising lead, but it quickly collapsed. Police located Alfred Boxall alive and well, and he still had the copy of the Rubaiyat Jessica had given him, complete with the Tamám Shud page intact. So why had Jessica Thompson reacted so strangely? Why did she seem to recognize the dead man yet deny it? She was evasive, and her story seemed designed to mislead police. The connection to her remained an unsettling loose thread. Years later, researchers would uncover another layer to the mystery. Jessica had a son, Robin, born shortly after the Somerton man's death. And as Robin grew, he developed 2 extremely rare genetic traits. His ears had a unique shape, and his teeth were missing the same incisors as the dead man. The odds of this being a coincidence were astronomical.
This has led many to believe that Robin was the Somerton man's son, and that Jessica knew exactly who the dead man was, and had every reason to hide the truth. The speculation didn't stop there. Some researchers, including her own daughter, have suggested that Jessica Thompson herself may have been involved in espionage, possibly as a Soviet agent. Did she lure the Somerton man to his death? Was their connection part of a clandestine affair that ended in tragedy on Somerton Beach? Jessica Thompson took her secrets to the grave, leaving a legacy of unanswered questions. As the years turned into decades, The story of the Somerton Man refused to fade. It became one of Australia's most profound mysteries, capturing the imagination of the public and investigators worldwide. The theories became more and more elaborate. The Cold War spy theory has always been the most persistent. The untraceable poison, the secret code, the removed labels, it all points to a professional, covert operation. Perhaps he was a double agent, discovered and eliminated.
Others see a tragic love story. A man who traveled to Adelaide to find Jessica Thompson, the woman he loved, only to be rejected. Tamám Shud, "It is finished," was his final poetic goodbye before taking his own life. But the story truly found a second life in the digital age. A global community of amateur sleuths, codebreakers, and historians has emerged online. They pore over every detail, from the type of thread used to repair his trousers to the faint scribbles in the book. No one has been more dedicated than Professor Derek Abbott of the University of Adelaide. What started as an academic curiosity in the 1990s became a lifelong obsession. For years, he led the charge, petitioning the government and pushing for one thing that could finally break the case wide open: exhumation and DNA testing. For decades, the unknown man lay beneath this simple headstone. His secrets were buried with him. But technology was advancing. The science of identifying the dead from even the smallest biological trace was becoming more and more powerful. The question was no longer if the Somerton Man could be identified, but when. After years of campaigning, in 2021, South Australian police finally granted permission to exhume the body. The ghost on the sand was about to speak. The key to unlocking a 70-year-old mystery didn't come from the exhumed remains, but from something much smaller. Hairs that had been trapped for decades in the plaster death mask made by police in 1948. Using cutting-edge DNA technology, Professor Derek Abbott and renowned American genealogist Colleen Fitzpatrick were able to extract a viable genetic profile.
They uploaded this profile to genealogical databases searching for a match. After building a massive family tree with over 4,000 individuals, they found what they were looking for. In July 2022, they made an announcement that stunned the world. They had identified the Somerton Man. His name, they claimed, was Carl Charles Webb, an electrical engineer and instrument maker from Melbourne, born in 1905. The story of Carl Webb began to fill in some of the blanks. He had separated from his wife in 1947 and seemed to have vanished. He wrote poetry and liked betting on horses, which some now believe could be the source of the code, simply the first letter of horses' names. And the name Keane on the clothing? It was the last name of his brother-in-law. The mundane explanations seemed to be replacing the sensational ones. The spy theories began to crumble, replaced by the portrait of a man, possibly lonely and troubled, who had traveled to Somerton for unknown reasons. While South Australia police have yet to officially confirm the identification, the DNA evidence is compelling. But even with a name, the central mystery remains. Why did he go to Somerton Beach? And how and why did he die? Carl Webb may be identified, but the Somerton Man's story is still not finished.
For over 70 years, the Somerton Man was a perfect mystery. A blank slate onto which a world of theories could be projected. Spy, lover, victim. He was a symbol of the unknown, a testament to the fact that some secrets might be kept forever. The identification of Carl Webb brings us closer to the truth, grounding a legendary mystery in a human story of personal struggle and perhaps quiet despair. It reminds us that behind every great enigma is often just a person with a life and a story that was lost to time. The code may never be broken. The full story of his final hours may never be known. He is a haunting symbol of how fragile our identity can be and how easily a life can be erased, leaving only questions in its wake. The man on the beach now has a name, but the mystery of the Somerton Man, the story that captivated the world, is not truly over. The final page has been turned, but the meaning of Tamám Shud, it is finished, still hangs in the salted air of Somerton Beach.